The dismantling of the front 3,000 kilometers away in the Galwan Valley, the order came down the wire at 0900 hours. Disengage, dismantle, withdraw. Major Vikram Singh stood on the parapet of Patrol Point 14. The wind had died down, leaving the valley in a stunning, silent clarity. He looked through his binoculars at the Chinese position on the ridge opposite him. For weeks, that ridge had been a source of death. Sniper fire, mortar shells, the constant psychological pressure of the loudspeakers. Now, he saw the PLA soldiers emerging from their bunkers. They weren't wearing helmets. They were wearing soft caps. They began to dismantle the heavy machine gun posts. They rolled up the camouflage nets. They looked like ants dissecting a dead beetle. "It feels wrong, sir," Subedar Sharma said, spitting on the frozen ground. "We bled for this hill. Now we just leave?" "We aren't leaving, Sharma," Vikram said, his voice raspy. "We are just stepping back. The hill stays here. The border stays here. We just stop feeding it bodies for a while." Vikram walked down into the dugout. It was filthy, smelling of unwashed bodies, kerosene, and fear. He looked at the wall where his men had scratched their names and the dates of the bombardments. It was a cave painting of modern war. He began to pack his kit. He picked up the empty canister of Chinese diesel, the fuel that had saved them during the siege. He considered leaving it, but then strapped it to his pack, a souvenir of the absurdity of survival. He walked out into the sunlight. His men were lined up, their faces gaunt, their eyes hollow. They looked like ghosts who had forgotten how to haunt. "Company!" Vikram barked, the command feeling strange in his throat. "Fall in! We're going home." They didn't cheer. They simply shouldered their rucksacks. The march down to the Shyok River would take 6 hours. As they moved out, Vikram looked back one last time. On the opposite ridge, Senior Colonel Zhang was standing on a rock. He was watching them go. He didn't wave. He didn't salute. He just stood there, a grey statue against the white sky. Vikram turned away. The bitter peace had begun. The return of the signal. In Bangalore, Dr. Aruna Reddy watched the large screen in the ice track center. It was no longer blank. "Signal acquisition confirmed," the flight dynamics officer reported. "GSAT-30 is online. Bandwidth is stabilizing at 80%. The world was waking up from its digital coma. The GPS constellations were slowly being rebuilt, the debris fields mapped and avoided. The internet, which had fragmented into national intranets, splinternets, was knitting itself back together. But it was different. Aruna looked at the data streams. The trust was gone. The global network was now a minefield of firewalls, air gaps, and suspicion. Every packet of data was scanned, sanitized, and quarantined. The era of the open web was over. Killed by the logic bombs of 2027. "We have a link to the Northern Command," the officer said. "They are requesting a damage assessment of the glacial melt." "Send the drone feed," Aruna said. She looked at the image of the Earth from the newly launched replacement satellite. It looked peaceful from up there. No borders, no trenches, just blue and white. "It's a lie," she whispered to herself. "The map is not the territory." The spy who came in from the cold. In a crowded market in Kathmandu, a man with a limp and a jagged tooth sat at a tea stall. Kabir, the R&AW operative who had broken the Qinghai Railway, was no longer Kabir. He was now Rajiv, a textile importer. He watched the news on a dusty television mounted above the stall. The anchor was talking about the Tashkent summit, about the triumph of diplomacy, about the new era of Asian stability. Kabir sipped his tea. He knew the truth. Stability was just a pause between catastrophes. He felt the phantom vibration of the burst transmitter in his pocket, though he had destroyed it weeks ago. He had won a great victory in the shadows. He had derailed a division, but nobody would ever know. There would be no medal, no parade. If he went back to Delhi, he would be debriefed in a basement room and then assigned a desk job in the archives. He looked at his hands. They were stained with engine grease that wouldn't wash off. "More sugar?" the tea seller asked. No, Kabir said. Sweet enough. He stood up and merged into the crowd. The war was over, but the espionage never stopped. He was already scanning the faces in the crowd, looking for the telltale signs of a Chinese Ministry of State Security tale. The game had just reset to level 1.